Hello, everyone. It's Auto Asphyxiation, and this is Lark.
And Kimberly.
Yes, and today it's another hot, spicy day in New Jersey. Um, I, uh, I can't believe how hot it is. I didn't understand when I was growing up when they said, "Oh, but it's dry heat," because I'm from Los Angeles. I was like, "Dry heat? What does that mean?" And now I understand what the opposite of dry heat is.
Yeah, the humidity has been atrocious of late. Yes.
Atrocious. And yeah, but anyway, climate crisis, all that. So we're going to talk about a topic that it is climate crisis related. You know, one of the leading causes for CO2 emissions in New Jersey is automobiles. So people driving their car. And so we're always looking for alternatives. The bicycle, public transit. But I think about this book by his name is Alu Taiwo or Alufemi Taiwo, and it's called Elite Capture: How Powerful Took Over Identity Politics. But I'm going to apply this to cycling. Power thrives by recasting a corporate plunder as liberation, a core deception. Law and political economy, I'm an economist, all that stuff, exposes that the markets are in LPE, markets are viewed as legal constructs, and deregulation is never neutral. It's regulations redesigned to privatize games and socialize risk into the working class. And feminist urbanism names this theft and demands infrastructure for life-sustaining work and not corporate speed. I think I so this today we're talking about electric bicycles, and it is this whole idea of you know is it solidarity to support people going as fast as possible because they have to deliver your food? Um, I know that a lot of bicycle advocates are like, we're not doing that. I'm like, well, where are you during the ice raids? Seems like the only time you trot people out who are working class is if they can do something for you. I don't know. How does it look to you, Kimberly? Like, does that look like that to you, or is that just me being cynical?
No, that looks like that to me also. I'm a person who I rely on delivery people a lot. And it's always like if you ever go into, Stop and Shop or even a fast food joint, like it's constant competition. It's just a line of like 18 bicycles, electric pedals, some cars like waiting outside. And it's just a constant force of competition. And I know that those gig drivers have quotas that they have to reach in a certain amount of time for people to get their food and whatever they order from them.
I have it on mute. That is kind of terrifying to me, and let's talk a little bit about the different kinds of e-bikes. We have class one, which are pedal assist only with a top speed of 20 miles per hour. We have class two equipped with a throttle, kind of like a motorcycle, top speed of 20 miles per hour. And then we have class three, pedal assist with a higher top speed of 28. But class three, so we have, but some of them can go up to 30 miles per hour. And you know, we have states that have lenient laws like California. We have states that have restricted laws like New York. But here's a challenge. You know, I don't know about you, Kimberly, but I have been in situations where, and this is not even like I don't even want to. I've been in situations where I'm trying to cross the street, or someone who is a senior is trying to cross the street, and not even talking about delivery people, but just people in general who are on these bicycles. They're like kind of like they're speeding by, like on the sidewalk, in our bike lanes. I mean, what do you think about that?
I've gotten almost run down quite a few times by people on the electric bikes that you can rent around the area. And it to the point where like I've actually like in certain areas, like especially Harrison, where they seem to be just everywhere. Like, I wouldn't walk around the streets in Harrison at this point in time, like, because they're going way too fast. People are not being cautious. They're not even wearing helmets for the most part, and they don't really care if they almost run you over.
And the thing is that what we're saying is, in regards to don't, who do our streets serve? Streets, and if we're prioritizing bike lanes for, for not to connect, but to expand the market, expand exploitation, expand innovation that has, corporate innovation over community safety. Is this really liberation? It's kind of like, well, we're helping them by allowing them to make as much money as possible. But here's, to me, I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't feel like liberation. Kind of like what I was talking about, this whole like, oh, we don't want to regulate things, but you do want to regulate things. You want to regulate tasks and products so that they benefit corporations. And also, essentially, if people who are maybe it's a 13-year-old that is riding an electric bike or electric scooter super fast, or a delivery person, we want to put, if that person happens to run over someone, it becomes an individual thing. It's like, oh, this person is an individually, he or she made a bad decision. This kid, their parents are bad parents because they let them ride this bike. But there's no responsibility for these corporations. If you don't have licensing laws, a 12-year-old is going to ride it and do it as fast as possible. That's normal. That's totally normal. And also, too, if you know that you make sure that people who are undocumented don't have rights, are getting paid by the delivery, and you kind of go, yeah, well, you have the freedom, the freedom to be enslaved to my company, and then you try to make it seem like it's about freedom for individuals. How that doesn't look like freedom to me.
It isn't freedom. It's like when I used to, like, when I used to work in a nursing home and they were so short staffed that they would like beg us to like pick up shifts, and they would give us bonuses and things like that. Over time the bonuses went down, and it was just kind of like, I don't really need that money. Like, well, but you could have money, and it's extra money, and there's less taxes taken out. We'll make sure that you get blah blah blah. And it's like, I don't have the time to enjoy the money that I've earned. So why do I want the extra money? Like, every nursing job has also been the same thing. Like, you can make as much money as you want. Sure, you can. If you work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, you too can make as much money as you want. But you're not going to enjoy that money. You're not going to enjoy retirement because you're probably going to work yourself to death before you can.
And that's the whole thing. We have this, these tensions, and care versus thrill. But the thing is, I don't want to call it thrill, because I don't know if it's thrilling to have to like deliver, you know 25 packages or 25 things of food an hour in order to probably stay in a place that you are like sharing with like five other guys. It'd be different if, oh, I did all this hard work and I ended up in a situation where I had a nice house. My kids could go to school. Like, I'm working hard and my life is good. Even though I'm doing this really hard and dangerous work, then I'm doing really well. But the thing is that we're fighting for, some cycling advocates are fighting for a lifestyle that has 10 guys to a room, not making enough money to live. They can't get married. They can't even bring their family over. They have to send money out. Or even if they are people who are US born, these people are living in their car. Living in their car, I've known situations where people live in their car, have their electric bike, and use that to kind of get around in order to make food. I mean, in order to make enough money to live. And people are like, well, you don't want to stop that person, right, from this wonderful life. And it reminds me of when I was working as an economic analyst for an early childhood education organization that I will not name, who tried to say that in order to help childcare workers, we should allow them to work during COVID, because even though they could risk death and they don't get any benefits or anything like that, at least they would be able to pay their rent. And I think I just stood there with my mouth open, like, are you for real?
Just pay them regardless.
I had a scheme where you could pay them, but the whole idea that, oh, that we're having with working class, or is solidarity among early childhood workers if we allow them to work, kind of like the whole cycling solidarity. I'm like, what is this? We're creating new identities now, around market based, around the market.
Not only that, but like it's so exploitive of migrant and immigrants that live in our area that work for these delivery companies. It's so exploitive of like people to be like, oh, it's fine, at least they can make as much money as they want to. Like they literally have to work themselves to death and live in squalor to do so. Like we're having people fight over scraps. And there's something also that has been going on with like the gig worker economy where, and it happens a lot with undocumented people, where someone will, establish identities for those people to work under. And that someone who establishes that, of course, is raking in most of the profits. And it's pushing even another system of exploitation, of like a black market or gray market exploitation.
That's just like wild to me. And I even think about, and like kind of moving on from that, because it's not even that. I think about the fact that the reason why we were trying to get away from the car is because we wanted to get away from this whole isolated mobility thing. And where we're kind of like, I'm in my car, I'm by myself, I'm not, I'm a team of one. I'm a man with his carriage, and I'm going to work. The thing is that, when we have, I want to call it analog bikes, or pedal assist bikes that don't go faster than 15 miles per hour, or bicycles that don't have throttles, people can share space. You get to look at somebody, you're like, oh, you know what? Oh, I ride my bike by this family every day, or I walk by this bike rider every single day. When you have like a throttle, kind of like when your bike becomes a moped, and you're going so fast, you're essentially becoming a car. You essentially are a car. I think about my father-in-law. He is an ornithologist. He has the longest bird survey in North America, and every day he goes out and counts the birds. He is 88 years old. The other day, and he is so well known and loved in his little town in Manitowoc. He even has a little statue of him. And he has, yeah, so he's very well known. He's outside counting the birds, and a child, totally on accident, has one of these electric bicycles and knocks him down. Keep in mind, this is a week after his pacemaker surgery.
Oh my
Um,
God.
it was horrifying. Um, of course, the child, it's Wisconsin, so of course the child stops and like helps him up. But I said, how old did he look? He said, oh, he looked about 12 years old. 12 years old on an electric bike that's going like 20 miles per hour and knocking over people. And here's the thing, this is not his fault. Because if you allow, that's like telling a 12-year-old, here is a bowl of candy, only take one piece. The average kid's not going to, because they're just kids. That's what kids do. In order to keep, we need to have institutional things around to keep people safe. And not even safe, to keep things, I hate the term safe because of the way we use it in the United States, to keep to keep our paths accessible and can keep our community connected. So we aren't looking at people like, oh, I'm afraid of you. That's not safe. You're not safe. It's, you know what I mean? I don't know if you want to add anything.
Well, and when I was looking into some of this, like we as human beings, most of our communication is nonverbal. I wasn't able to find a simple percentage because it's much more complicated than that. But most of our communication is nonverbal. It's body language, it's gestures, it's eye contact, it's facial expressions. So when you're traveling along at 20 miles per hour or greater, it's impossible for you to non-verbally communicate to someone that you're coming, get out of the way or what have you. And you risk the fact that your voice will not make it to the person's ears in time because you are traveling at such a high rate of speed that they won't have enough time to react. So it to me, like 20 miles per hour seems like grossly unnecessary for like where pedestrians and moms with strollers and old ladies with like grocery carts might be.
And even middle-aged ladies like me. I was like, oh my gosh! Like when I'm walking around and I'm just like, oh my! Like and here's the thing: I would feel awful. I would feel awful if a child accidentally crashed into me or a delivery driver accidentally crashed into me. I would have like some weird moral thing like, oh, do I ruin this person's life because they ran me over? Or do I just kind of suck it up and just take myself to the emergency room? I mean, this, and I think it's the thing we view regulation is care. It's not a restriction. You know, regulations can act as a democratic tool to protect people and to sustain public life. It doesn't, it's, we have this idea of like, oh, all restrictions are bad. We should let people go 100 miles per hour. We should be able to like, drive our cars on the sidewalk. I mean, we have regulations, kind of like, oh, we have situations with vitamins. Like if you take a bunch of iron, or remember that case, I forgot, this woman, she took these supplements, and the supplements, she ended up having like 10 or 20 times the amount of iron or vitamin C that she's supposed to have. And she almost went into liver failure.
Yeah.
We have regulations is care. We have this thing where we don't want any rules or anything like that. But the thing is that they're ruling us, because it comes off. We use this language like, oh, deregulations and like freedom, but we are the ones that end up being regulated. We are the ones that end up not having freedom. And these corporations that are like, we're people, they end up being more free than us.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail right on the head. And it's like let's look at some regulations that everybody agrees on. We have building and fire codes. We have helmet laws and seatbelt laws. We have age restrictions on pornography, tobacco, and alcohol. There are regulations that exist to protect the public and vulnerable people. Regulating e-bikes and e-scooters is another facet of that. And like those regulations came about on the backs of workers, on the blood of workers. Like people died because to make sure that we have building and fire codes now, not just because buildings collapsed on them or burned them alive, but also because people went on strike and literally fought wars to make sure that workers and the public were protected from corporations and people who seek profit over people.
And that's what I'm kind of wondering. How is this idea of, and I think for me, it irritates me. I don't like when people use historically excluded, marginalized people for causes when I don't believe them. I don't believe that Lyft and City Bike and corporations that make these electric bikes that are like $2,000, $3,000. I don't believe that they're concerned or for these workers, for these undocumented people. I don't see them out when and during the protests during ICE. I don't see them going, "Hey, let's grant a citizenship to everyone who works here for like 2 years." I don't see them doing that. I see them using people, and that's why I keep kind of going back to that. But also too, you know, uh, let's have a let's I feel like there should be a line between a bicycle and a motor vehicle. I don't understand why this is so complicated. And this is like part of like I call it like the patriarchy menace of urbanism, where it's like we don't need a line. We could just like a bicycle. There's a difference between a bicycle and a motor vehicle. And motor vehicles or electric vehicles should not be in the bike lane, should not be in the sidewalk, and they shouldn't be viewed as bicycles. No one needs a throttle, and no one needs bicycles over 15 miles per hour. And I know that that is even above, stricter than the class 1 classification that says 20 or less. I think it should be 15 or less, because I don't understand. I know who did that. I know it was some dude who's like, well, people want to go fast, and what's the point? What's the point? Like, you don't need to go that fast, even if I think we can't stop people when they're riding their bikes that fast, like without any throttle. But if I think of this way, if you can't get yourself up to 20, you don't need to be at 20.
Well, and also, like it's like, well, the who cares attitude is concerning. As a nurse, like I always look at the public health. In May of 2025, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons raised red flags. They produced data that showed a very concerning rise in bone and joint injuries related to surging popularity of e-bikes. Part of this is because more of them are in the public space. Obviously, if you have more things in the public space, you're going to have more statistics related to that thing. But it becomes concerning in public health arenas because the same laws that govern bicycle accidents govern e-bike and scooter accidents. So you're having accidents happen at a higher velocity, higher rate of speed. There are more traumatic accidents. When you are struck by a motorist, you file an insurance claim with their insurance company. What happens when you're hit by an e-bike rider? They don't have insurance. The vehicle is not registered. Does Citibank pay for it? Does Lyft pay for it? Of course not. They're not the ones writing it. So it becomes this whole loop of liability and negligence and who's really at fault. And we have to examine all of the evidence. And meanwhile, people are getting traumatically injured by people on these e-bikes.
And it would be different. It's like, who's like bearing the cost of this innovation? That's the whole thing. It's like they're trying to make it seem like this is something we're helping. You're not helping. I think about, in North Jersey, in Essex, we still don't have a protected bike lane on Bloomfield Avenue, which is a major street. We still don't have a protected bike lane on any arterial lane. They are huge. I know that they're fast. That's why they should be protected. But also they're big. They're wide streets. So you could easily put bike lanes on these streets. And then they kind of go, well, no, that would be, but no, but we, instead of that, we want to do red light cameras. We want to ticket people, but we don't want to do the physical, the infrastructure. We don't want to focus on that. No, but we want to allow people to like ride e-bikes. We want to have bicycles and, well, I shouldn't even say, again, bicycles in parks. We want to have all that, but we don't want to actually, the work. It looks to me like carceral, patriarchy, market-driven urbanism, because I don't see how electric mopeds masquerading as bicycles, red light cameras, and tickets makes it easier for me to not have a car in Essex, makes it easier from someone in East Orange or in Newark or even in like Nutley to get around. I don't see anything progress in that. It's all about like, oh, we got to keep people safe, except for if a corporation doesn't want to keep people safe. But we got to keep people safe. We got to give people tickets. We've got to do all these things. But do you have to do any infrastructure? No. Do you have to build a bike lane anywhere where people would actually be able to use it to get to the light rail, to get to the heavy rail, to get to work? No, we don't have that. But we got a thing that we can ride in the park. That's great. That's great. You did some great work there. I'm sorry. I shouldn't keep doing it, but it's just so very annoying. So, you know, what would you think like care-centered infrastructure would look like, or feminist urbanist infrastructure would look like? Like, say we wanted to like, to try to kind of like, end on like we want to do something so that, you know, people could access where they need to go without going 20 miles per hour.
I think that bike lanes are so often an afterthought in infrastructure planning, and it's like obvious when you see them, like it's like, oh, we're just going to plunk this right here. It's not something that was like a forethought, like it's just like, here we're gonna put this right there. And I think that like a more care centric, more rational kind of city planning involves things that are, it works with nature. It centers around the vulnerable people that are going to be using the area rather than cars. Like we have a highway system. That's where the cars can be car centric. We have that highway system. Like our streets and our cities should be people centric. I imagine like streets that are lined with trees and shade and benches and areas where people can take a rest if they're bicycling or walking for too long, and I imagine wide paths so that if somebody is a little slower, the people that are faster can go around them instead of getting annoyed and irritated by, grandma who likes to take a bike ride every Sunday, like I think that those cities are imminently possible to do it.
Well, it's totally possible in North Jersey. And I mean, I think if and I want to kind of like, say some points. If we want to help people, why don't we unionize delivery drivers instead of like trapping them in essentially algorithm death races? We should demand public transit like BRT, bus rapid transit system, buses, trains, why don't we draw a line over what is a bicycle? Like, I don't understand why that is so complicated. Like, I don't think we should do that. I think we should.
If it
And
if it's a it has a throttle, I'm sorry, that's a moped. Like
I don't think I don't think it's complicated, but it's this whole like, oh, we can't say that because then, at least that's like with the gun lobby. They're like, well, at least it's not an AK-47. It's like, wow, that's a weird line. Like, I feel that just like the difference between a service animal and somebody who bought a vest on Amazon and pretended like it's, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, it's not saying you can't use it, but you can't use it the same way someone who needs who has a bike. And also too, when they create these situations where you allow, class one, you number one, you expand the definition of class one to go all the way up to 20 miles per hour, and then somebody does something and hurts someone, then all of a sudden no one can use them. So then disabled people couldn't use them, elderly people wouldn't use them. That's just what you're setting it up for. You're expanding a category to allow it so that you could still get some market use out of it. See, at 15 miles per hour, it's still human centric, but you want to you've expanded class one from that once you get past 15, And once you kind of have, oh, class one special with a throttle, you're essentially creating, oh, because we can't just have an item that can't serve me, that can't serve capitalism. And a bicycle that just goes 15 miles per hour as a pedal assist, that would just help disabled people. That would just help seniors. They can't make us the kind of money that we want. I mean, we should just be honest about what it is. Like feminist urbanism would be like interdependence. Like we would be thinking about not just the market. We wouldn't be thinking about the market. We're thinking about human beings and nature, right? Interdependence between, like you said, about human and nature, centering vulnerable people and nature. Rejecting the algorithm exploitation and reclaim regulation not as bureaucracy, but as a collective protection of public life. I think this is so very freaking important. And I just kind of I kind of hate this zero sum game that we have now, where it's kind of like we've got to support anything. If anybody slaps cyclist on it, we have to support it, and we can't criticize it, and we can't say anything because we have to have solidarity. We have to have cyclist solidarity. Well, I'm sorry, my solidarity is with the working class. That is my solidarity. Same thing with there is no cycling community. There's a working class community. There is no early childhood community. It is the working class community. And I think, and we look at this through a feminist lens. And the feminist lens is inclusive of everyone. It's inclusive of all genders, inclusive of all cultures, inclusive of all ages. And, I'm just talking a lot. But is there anything else you would like to add, Kimberly?
Well, I think to your point, I think unionization of delivery workers is extraordinarily important. I think it's just respect for our fellow man. Worker solidarity is not solidarity with making as much money as you can. It's solidarity with a life that somebody can feel fulfilled and have fulfilling work as well as rest and leisure time. That is true solidarity, not just that money grubbing, endless hunger for money.
And the thing also is that, we should have a situation where we have unions, and all unions are North American unions. That means Mexico, Canada, etc. Whatever, what we have the West, a union of the West. If you're from a Western part of the country or the world, then you're part of the union. It's just unions things that, you have to be a citizen to be a union. I don't think that's a thing. But I think that is kind of like this whole idea that, if you're not a citizen, you can exploit this person. Well, anybody who's in the delivery should be part of the union, regardless of if they are regardless if they're documented or not. I think that's something that we should start looking at in an international way, like, the IWW, where we're one big union. The entire world is a big union, so you can't exploit anyone. I think that's, maybe that's bigger than this conversation right now, but, I think we need to start thinking in that way, because guess what? Hegemony is these people with a lot of money thinking, how can I? Because we think, undocumented people, that they're randomly here because they wanted a better life. We don't think, that powerful people from corporations are like, well, we could bring people here and exploit them, and then we could just break a union that way. We don't think that happens. Well, people don't think it happens, but it does clearly happen. And so
it happens all of the time.
Exactly. And so we need to be, if they're thinking that way, if power, corporations, capitalism are thinking that way, the working class need to be thinking that way. So they can't break any union, because we brought someone in from somewhere else. No, the minute you get here, you're a brother, you're a sister, you're a folk. Maybe we'll use the term folk. The minute you get here, you're a folk. We're going to help you. We're going to set you up with a place to live. We're going to set you up so you won't be exploited by these people. I think that's how they probably used to do it back in the day, right? Before, you didn't have to have a card. So it's like you came over from somewhere, of course, not people who were descendant of slaves, but if you were from Europe or somewhere else and you were an immigrant and you came here, you got hooked up by by the other working class people. Oh, you're from Ireland? Hey, brother, you're a folk. Let me help you out. Here's a place you could stay. Here's where you get your hair cut. Here's where you get. We need to do that again. And it shouldn't even be, it shouldn't be culturally based. It should be working class. If you're working class, you come here. The way the rich hook up each other with Einstein visas, we should hook you up with an IWW card.
I agree. I think that would be so absolutely powerful. And that is really what we have to do is we have to band together and protect everybody with a union.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, that's what it is. And stop, and corporations are not people. Stop treating them like people. Stop letting them have rights. Stop going, well, I have a right. You don't have a right. You're not a person. Okay. Be like, well, you're discriminating against corporations. That's right. That's right.
I,
We are definitely discriminating because you are not a human being. You're not a human being. You're not nature. And the fact that you're dictating this conversation, the fact that you're capturing the fact that these corporations are capturing the social justice conversation, whether it's cycling or early childhood or food justice. It's just sickening. And I've gone on and on. We're going too long, but it's a sickening, sickening thing. And with that, remember to subscribe. Yeah, subscribe. I always say the wrong words. Subscribe. And check us out at Sprawlism or at Auto Asphyxiation. So you have a good evening.
Thanks for listening.